Welcome to this episode of Automotive Insiders. I'm your host, Jason Stein. Great to have you with us. Great to have you back again listening. It's no secret that the automotive supply chain has been under pressure. Tariffs, trade policy shifts, geopolitical uncertainty, ongoing disruption that's forced suppliers to rethink how and where they operate. But what's interesting is how some companies are responding, not by reacting, but by redesigning their business around the chaos. Because in today's environment, supply chain strategy isn't just about moving parts efficiently. It's about creating flexibility, unlocking capital, and building resilience into the system. That's exactly where Lucerne International is leaning in. By evolving beyond traditional contract manufacturing and building out a foreign trade zone enabled model, Lucerne is helping companies rethink how product flows through their supply chains, changing not just cost structures, but how capital is deployed and controlled. Joining me today is Mary Buchzeiger, CEO of Lucerne International, to talk about turning disruption into opportunity and what suppliers should be doing right now to stay competitive. Mary's coming up on Automotive Insiders. Mary, pleasure to have you on Automotive Insiders. Thanks for coming on as a guest.
That's wonderful to be here. I appreciate the invite, Jason.
Well, wonderful to have you. You know, it's not a boring time in the automotive world right now. Tariffs, trade policy shifts, supply chain disruptions. Uncertainty seems to be the word that resonates. I know that you've taken a different approach. It's not just reacting to it, but building a business model around it. So let's start here. We've talked for years about supply chain volatility. The last few years have been different with all those things I just mentioned. What are you seeing right now from your vantage point, and how has the nature of that disruption changed?
I think you said uncertainty, that's the buzzword, but I think that uncertainty is the new future. So rather than having to plan for things that we're expecting and cyclical, now we actually have to plan for the uncertainty, and uncertainty seems to be the only thing that we're certain of at this point. So
Right.
it's really important for companies to make plans around that and be able to be agile and be able to change their plans much quicker than we could in the past.
That's a whole different way of viewing the world, isn't it, Mary?
It is. And, businesses, especially in the automotive industry, really like certainty. So it's just a different mindset that now us as leaders in the industry and businesses have to really turn on their head and just grasp this whole different mindset of being able to be way more agile than we have in the past.
So instead of reacting to the volatility, you've leaned into it, haven't you?
Where there's chaos, there's opportunity.
Yep.
There's always opportunity in the midst of chaos. So we have last year when Trump 2.0 kind of tariffs started hitting and there was so much uncertainty. We, like many others, we are a global manufacturer. We do a lot of importing. And when those tariffs, and importing from China, mind you, when our tariffs went from 27.5% up to 72.5%, and then continued to have the possibility of climbing, it doesn't, that point in time, it's not even a profitability game, it's a cash flow game, right? How do you deal with these tariffs when all of a sudden now you've got so much out of your cash flow? So we went ahead and said, okay, what tools can we use? And we went ahead and became our own foreign trade zone. So we got a foreign trade zone certification activation here in Auburn Hills. And that helped us really just mitigate the cash flow portion of the tariffs, which then we could turn and focus on that side of, okay, how do we get these tariffs compensated? It put a Band-Aid on it for a short time. And it really helped us. Just in one program alone, we freed up $1.2 million a month in cash flow off of one program for tariffs. It's crazy.
Let's talk about that a little bit more. It is called Lucerne Global Solutions.
So, well, we originally did the FTZ for ourselves because we said, okay, we need this. And then we were working with one of our suppliers and they said, well, we need some help too. We have another customer. Can you help us? And we said, gosh, yes, we can. And we said, this is a really interesting business venture because not only can we do this for ourselves, we can warehouse, do fulfillment for other companies that desperately need this. So we started a whole new division of the business. It's actually a completely separate entity called Lucerne Global Solutions. And that division of the business is a warehousing, fulfillment, foreign trade zone where we help and partner with US companies, foreign companies that need that help here in the US.
So relevant right now for suppliers and manufacturers. But you viewed it, like we said earlier, not just a challenge, but the FTZ was really an opportunity, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great opportunity to jump in, and like I said, where there's chaos, there's opportunity. But we saw a problem and we attacked that problem, and hopefully we're making a difference for many companies at this point in time and helping them mitigate these tariffs and this changing environment as fast as it's changing, helping them mitigate some of those issues.
Let's talk literally what it is. You're doing warehousing, repack, light assembly, kitting,
Yeah,
full fulfillment, all within that structure. That's got to be
correct.
an enormous operational shift for you. How did you build the capability to do that?
It's not too big of a shift, believe it or not, because we were already doing that portion of it internally for ourselves. So, like I said, we're a global manufacturer, we're contract manufacturing. We do a ton of manufacturing offshore. We bring the goods in where we do warehousing, repackaging, kitting, light assembly. We've already been doing that for the last 30 years. So, all we did was take that portion of the business and explode it and really started to focus on it. Thankfully, the day and age that we live in, with the tools that are out there now, with AI and the speed to be able to make adjustments and to be able to make those operational adjustments, we leaned heavy into AI and automation to really help us bridge that gap and grow as fast as we have.
And you're helping companies free up capital by rethinking their supply chain effectively, unlocking cash flow and control, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're also a little bit on the front end. We're also doing some consulting for just global supply chain, what that looks like. If you're manufacturing in China right now, hey, we know a good manufacturing base in Thailand where we can actually help you move your supply chain, and then you're going to be at a lower tariff rate. So we're doing a little bit of global supply chain reengineering, as well as helping identify HTS codes, the lower tariff end of things. So we're looking at the supply chain as a whole and helping companies, and also doing the fulfillment, the warehousing, and the assembly portion of it.
I would guess you're forcing your customers to think differently about the way that they operate, because historically supply chains were built for efficiency and cost. Now they're rebuilt for resilience and flexibility. So
Yes.
what are the conversations like that you're having now that maybe you weren't even having a year or two ago?
Yeah, I think it's really surprising to understand how many people import um, and that don't even understand all the tools that are available to importers or to manufacturers, because there's so many tools out there and they've been around for years. But it's just really educating our customers at this point in time. It's educating them. There is something, I think the number is around 200 activated foreign trade zones out there, but less than 4% of eligible importers actually use them. Less than 4% with these
Wow.
tariffs. So that's
Wow.
just cash out of your pocket. A foreign trade zone, just to for those listeners that don't understand what it is, if you bring
Yeah.
goods in through the port, those goods, the tariffs are usually due within 3 to 7 days. You've got to pay those tariffs. Now, if you bring them in either bonded into a bonded warehouse or into a foreign trade zone, those goods can sit in our foreign trade zone, basically duty free, until such time where they enter US commerce. So when they enter US commerce and we clear them and they ship out our back door, that's when the clock starts ticking and you owe those tariffs. Or let's say you bring in goods, much like a program that we have, we bring in goods. Some of those goods stay here in the US, but some of those goods actually go to Mexico and Canada. Well, now we can still bring those same goods in on the same container, save on shipping costs. We can re export those goods to Mexico or Canada or anywhere else in the world, and the tariffs are never applicable. Like they never entered the US because they officially never entered US commerce. So it's a huge cash savings tool, rather than having to apply for duty drawback or just pay the tariffs and get stuck paying those tariffs unnecessarily.
And you're working across consumer goods, industrial, raw materials. Are you working with OEMs as well?
We are working with OEMs as a satellite warehouse. So we're actually working with tier ones, and we are their satellite warehouse. So we are shipping directly into OEMs. We have had a couple of OEMs purchasing teams say, "Hey, can you come in and talk to a base of our suppliers because we need you to educate them and tell them that these things are available with this tariff mitigation."
Wow. You have a fascinating view on where the world is right now. What does that level of diversification tell you about where the broader market is going? You have the biggest, clearest crystal ball, perhaps, of anybody.
Yeah, it's it's kind of funny because really we're trying to we just went through an executive planning meeting and we said, okay, let's really try to narrow down our target market. But our target market is so broad because our target market is anybody who's impacted by tariffs. And it is almost
Right.
every single industry right now that can absolutely use this. And I mean, it's all a matter of perspective. Yes, there may be some smaller importers and distributors, and we look at it compared to automotive, where we're saving millions and millions of dollars, and these smaller importers, maybe we can only make $100,000 impact on them, but to them, that's everything. So, everybody is dealing with these tariffs, and nobody's safe basically right now.
Fascinating. If you're an automotive supplier right now listening to this, margins are tight, contracts are rigid, costs are volatile. What's the biggest missed opportunity you see suppliers making right now when it comes to their supply chain strategy?
Oh, there's a little list of them, I would say. Making sure that they're really looking at if they're doing any kind of importing, really looking at what they're paying for. The Just a simple example, we looked at our costs that from one program where we were purchasing from one of our suppliers in China. And the piece price actually had wrapped into it the transportation from their dock to the port. And that was our piece price that we were paying tariffs on. Well, that's silly. That's an extra 35 or 40 cents per part that we were paying an additional 72.5% on, when in fact, all we had to do is just make it FOB their dock. The piece price became less, we're paying less tariffs. So that's just one simple little example of really understanding your pricing, that where every step of the way, what you're paying for, your bill of material breakdown, and then on top of that, really examining your HTS codes. Are you using the correct HTS codes? And optimizing your supply chain. Do you have that opportunity to use a bonded warehouse or a foreign trade zone? And really delaying those tariff payments as long as possible. Because we all know, especially in automotive, our payment terms are up to 90 days in a lot of cases. So if you're importing goods and some of those goods are going into what you're making, or you're just passing those goods along, you've got the goods entering port maybe 2 to 4 weeks before they receive your facility, another 2 to 3 weeks safety stock, then you ship them, then you get paid in 90 days. You're out so much. The cash flow is just huge that you're paying way back when those goods entered port. So it's a simple math problem at the end of the day.
Wow. You've led in this effort through a major pivot operationally, strategically. What have you learned about leading through this kind of uncertainty, especially when the rules keep changing?
Oh, it's a challenge. I think the most important thing is to be open and transparent, not just with your customers, your suppliers, but your team, because there tends to be a lot of nervousness around organizations when there's so much uncertainty. And really just being open and transparent and leaning heavy on your team and challenging them, to think outside of the box. The old rules just don't apply anymore. We're getting hit with all of these new geopolitical and regulatory things that are coming in. And then on the flip side of it, you've got AI transforming things at such a fast pace that you've just got to continue to be transparent and constantly willing to think outside of the box and pivot when you need to.
We've talked a lot about volatility, adaptation, opportunity. As you look ahead, final question, what's the next phase of this? You talked about something that a phrase I've not heard coined before. Uncertainty is now the future. Is this level of disruption here to stay, Mary?
If I had a crystal ball,
Yeah.
I would say yes, because again, if we're just looking at automotive, we've had so much disruption happen with between just what's happening inside of automotive with ICE to EV, back to ICE, to hybrid. So all of that level of disruption, pile on top of it the geopolitical changing times, and then put on top of that AI. It's just this constant disruption, and you've really got to be ready for anything.
Ready for everything and anything. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Really insightful, a great example of turning disruption into something actionable. Mary, thank you for joining me today.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Big thanks to my guest again, Mary Buchzeiger, CEO of Lucerne International. Thank you for listening on this podcast platform. Come back to this platform for more interviews throughout the year. I'm your host, Jason Stein. We'll see you again next time.